Kaveri, one more question. Is English or all throughout okay, or should I be bilingual? Like English, Hindi?
I think English would be preferable.
Okay.
Sure. Yeah. I think English all throughout would be good.
Thank you.
I can hear myself again and again. Like there's a lag between the live stream and what I'm saying, and I can hear the live stream again.
So yeah, actually, there's always a 20-second lag between a Zoom and a live stream. So in the live stream, after 20 seconds, you will be able to see what we're seeing on Zoom right now.
I think there's just a lag of like 10 to 15 seconds. Rest is working fine.
Okay, so we'll be starting in about a minute now. We almost have quite many who've joined in. So yeah, just before that, just I wanted to know, as you speakers, like both of you, Miss Archana and Miss Sajida, what do you all like think about this entire subject of mental health and how it's being spoken about? Like just off the record, not part of this thing, but what is it something that you all feel that we can do, or what's something like, what's your take about this entire issue within the country specifically? Like obviously it's a worldwide thing, but within India specifically. Whoever would like to go first and say something.
Yeah, I feel like that's a pretty wide question, and I feel like probably use the time during those 10 minutes to explore that, right?
Alright,
What the state of mental health in the country is and what your role is.
Yeah.
But as to the second question, right, what your role is in all of this, definitely feel like me being a part of this whole Teach for India development sector community, I have this ability to say, okay, I'm going to start something. I have access to children. I have access to this school ecosystem where I say, okay, let's send someone, or let's go, let's try to explore this. So I feel like engaging with NGOs which are working on the ground on issues like this, or having your own volunteer group that can probably gain access to some way to connect with other people, probably even within your own college, right? Like an
Right.
actual working group on mental health that meets every week, right? A support group is something that's that's shown a lot of promise in a lot of places. So maybe something like that. Having even this is a great start because you guys are talking about it and giving it voice. So definitely big congratulations for taking that first step. But keeping it ongoing, I think would be
Right.
amazing.
Exactly. Miss Sajida, do you have any your input on this that you would want to share? Just like a line. Obviously, we'll cover most of it in the session, but just wanted to hear something.
Yeah, like I would just begin and just add to what Archana said, that first of all, a huge gratitude to young people, all of you all who are taking this initiative and talking about this much needed conversation, which has amplified, of course, due to COVID, and we'll talk a lot about it as we move forward. Which was always needed. I have been always very passionately attached with the health, with the cause of mental health and well-being across. And I do believe that as educators, as influencers, as in some ways we are all connected with students, children. It's so much more important to take care of our own mental health and well-being, so as to be fully available for all our students out there. So yeah, in a nutshell,
Right.
I'm really grateful for you guys to be doing this.
Right. No, we feel for this subject, and our theme for the year itself is it's called Hirayat, which means a deep longing for something and how you can try to achieve that. So it's related to someone's yearning to try to achieve something in their life, and that totally relates to mental health. And we really felt that that's something that we can touch upon. So yeah, and glad to have both of you. I think we're good to go. We can begin the session now. So yeah.
Yeah, we're just admitting all people.
All right. So firstly, welcome to everyone present here and all the attendees for this session, the first part of our event, social pre-event that we've organized called Chaotic Picasso, that is touching upon issues of mental health and even combining how art as a form can try to, how is that involved in this entire subject, in the entire ecosystem of mental health and this space. So we're doing it. We're really glad to have Teach for India. We've collaborated with them for this pre-event and this social cause, and we're really grateful for having them on board. So, and we were also really honored and privileged to have two really great speakers in Miss Sajida and Miss Archana, who have been working in this space. And I would like to start by first introducing Miss Archana. So She has a bachelor's in electronic engineering, and she was a Teach for India fellow in the urban slum of Medar Basti in Hyderabad from 2017 to 2019. And the fellowship afforded her a deep dive into the grassroots realities of the education system, as well as the gap between policy priorities and live experiences in the class, the lived experiences in the classrooms and school community. And inspired by the power of data to bring people story policy makers, she joined J. Paul's RISE. RISE stands for Research on Improving Systems of Education in India, and where she led numerous experimental evaluations in school choice, education technology, and public data integrity. And she's currently pursuing a master's in public administration at the Columbia University, which focuses on economic and political development, while working part time as a social impact consultant at Satwa. And she's also led the Commune, which is an initiative to provide access to mental health support to adolescents in low income schools in Hyderabad in partnership with Pause for Perspective. So, thank you so much for joining us today and addressing all the attendees here. And I would like to introduce the second panelist for the day, Miss Sajida. So Ms. Sajida graduated from the University of Mumbai with a bachelor's in history and psychology, and she's currently pursuing her master's in psychology as well. She's certified in rational emotive behavior therapy, and a lot of her practices are informed by narrative ideas. She has a diploma in narrative therapy as well, and Ms. Sajida is passionate about working in the space of mental health, well-being, and inclusion. And she was a Teach for India fellow for 2 years and taught the ninth and 10th grade students in a BMC school. And she totally brings her diverse experience as a teacher within the government school space as well, and the knowledge and expertise with relevant stakeholders, liaisoning with them within the broader space of the education. So really glad to have both of you here on board with us for this panel session. So yes, and over to and we have with us Ms. Kaveri, who is the Teach for India representative, who has helped plan this entire event along with us in collaboration with Teach for India. So over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Shivansh. Thank you for that beautiful introduction of Archana and Sajida. I think they really deserve the credit for doing what they are doing today. And yes, yes, I'm sorry. Yes, Zoom issues, folks. I welcome all of you to Chaotic Picasso. It's a collaboration between the Jai Hind College, the BMS department, and their fest Talaash, and Teach for India. It's a part of today's session is a part of the series on art and mental health as a social campaign. We're going to explore very different aspects of mental health today. One of that of a grassroots worker who actually works in the domain of mental health is a certified practitioner, like Shivansh introduced, Ms. Sajida. And we're also going to look at it from the lens of an advocate, a mental health advocate, as Archana rightly is, and also sort of touch upon what India's mental health policy looks like. So these are a range of subjects that we're going to touch upon today. I hope you can stay engaged with us for the next hour or so. And without much ado, and in true Teach for India style, let's just talk about how we want this space to be today. So I have a few norms for all of you, and we are going to make sure that all of us are active listeners throughout this conversation. There will be times for folks who've joined us on Zoom. We would request you to share your thoughts on the chat box. For those of you who are joining in live, you can put them as comments as well and engage with us. We'll try and take as many thoughts as far as possible. For people who are on the call today, would request you to stay on mute whenever you're not not sharing, just to avoid the background noises. The work from home scenario has pretty much ruined what spaces like this would look like, but nevertheless, appreciate the team spirit for trying. Next is just use the reactions for folks on Zoom as well as people who are joining us online. Use reactions to express yourself so that we know what you are feeling at that particular moment. And lastly, just go ahead and consider this as a safe space. Put down your thoughts in a manner that's conducive in a situation like this, in a formal situation like this, but at the same time, know that this conversation is sacred and we will move forward with that. Yeah. I'll be trying and moderating this space today. So I'm going to introduce myself. I'm Kaveri. I work as a recruitment manager at Teach for India. And I am a proud 2019 Teach for India fellow. Proud because I'm honored to do the Teach for India fellowship. Additionally, because I did it in the year 2019, I think I got the exposure of working on ground, understanding what it means like to work with children who come from low-income backgrounds. Yeah, so what you can see are pictures of my classroom, my school, and it is because of this experience that I am here today. I just thought that I would like to share this with all of you. Yeah. With that, without much ado, let's deep dive into the session. And I want everybody who's on the call to take about 30 seconds to quickly make a laundry list of tasks that you need to finish in the next 24 hours. You know, take like quick 30 seconds and just jot them down and say, hey, these are the 10 things that I want to do over the next 24 hours. I know it's a weekend, so a lot of us might be packing our schedules with a whole lot of work, while the other half might just want to relax. Both is completely all right. And for folks who are on the call, I know there are about 70 odd folks on the call. I would request them to actually put down a few things on the chat if possible. So quick 30 seconds to do that. Okay, as you can see at the bottom right corner, you can see the chat symbol. Yes, so I'm expecting each one of you to head to the chat box and tell me how many tasks have you made, have you written in your list? You know, put down the number of tasks that you've made a list of and tell me the number. Would expect everybody to be extremely proactive. If you haven't been able to put down all your tasks, that's completely all right. We have 5, 6, 7, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so a range of 5 to 7 seems like the average for everybody who's joined in today, and would love if more and more people can respond to this, yeah? Now, when you have so much to do, yes, you have 8 tasks to do, 10 tasks to do. If you can just take about 30 seconds to think then that amidst your busy schedule, why are you here today? Yeah. Why is this conversation of mental health so important that you have decided to make time for it amidst your busy schedule? Yes. Please stay rooted in that purpose. Do remind yourself whenever you feel slightly disengaged at any point in time that this is why you are here in the space today, and ensure that you are giving yourself and you're doing full justice to your own time, because you have made the choice of being here in spite of your schedule. Yeah, with that, I'm going to hand it over to Sajida. Sajida, if you could take over from here.
Sure, Kaveri. And thank you so much for the introduction, for even sharing the picture of your classroom. That was nostalgia for me to kind of go back to my fellowship. But thank you so much even for setting the intent for the next 1 hour that we are all together here in the space. I just want to add to what you already introduced, such a lovely introduction. Just a little bit about my own experience of fellowship, which I did in 2016. I'm a parent of 2 children, and once they kind of went abroad to kind of pursue their studies, looking for purpose in life, and the fellowship for me also has been a transformational journey. During my fellowship, I recognized, since my own son has been diagnosed with ADHD, During the fellowship, I recognized the need to work towards inclusion for all diverse learners in the classroom. And that's what led me to join Umeed Child Development Center, which works towards supporting children who experience disabilities, or if we may call, neurodiverse children in our classroom. One of the things that I am passionate about is creating safe spaces, working and towards supporting mental health spaces for them, well-being spaces for them, not only for them, for also the educators and the caregivers that are involved with them. So just taking the conversation forward from here today, a very warm welcome to each one of you. It's Saturday evening. If you've come here, definitely I can see a connect to the purpose. So I invite you to this space. What I would invite to all of you all is just take a moment. If you could close your eyes, focus on your breathing. If it's not comfortable to close your eyes, it's okay to keep them open, whatever is your preference. Focus on your breathing. Notice the sounds around you. Notice the contact of your body to the ground. Notice the thoughts passing your mind. Acknowledge them. Let it pass. Relax your mind, your hands, your facial muscles, your stomach, your thighs. Notice your breath going in and exhaling out. Please come back whenever you feel ready. Thank you so much. Like Kaveri mentioned about this space, it being a safe space, just wanted to call out that no blame, no shame, no guilt. This is a safe space. At any point of time in the session, you feel uncomfortable or do whatever you need to do for your body and your mind to feel safe and engage in the session. Do let any one of us know if you need anything for your safety and well-being. Would encourage all of us to think about the past few months. I mean, it has been out of ordinary for each one of us in so many ways. If you have a pen and paper, color, if you could take a moment to think about a poem, a metaphor, a sentence, a song, a drawing, even an image, or in any other way that you can think of the experience of your past few months. I'll pause here for some time here. Yeah. Thank you. I can see responses coming in. If anyone would like to share, if you would like to unmute and share, feel free to do so. Kaveri, I'll need your support to see if there are any hands raised or anybody's, because I cannot see all.
Absolutely.
Would love to hear from you. Or if you would like to put it on the chat box, that's fine too. I can see a roller coaster ride of emotions. For Shivansh, it's an adventurous journey ongoing. If you've drawn something, if there's a poem, if there is a song, a lot of us do connect to songs. If there's a song and you would like to share, staying calm to move forward. Any metaphor that's coming to my mind? For me, when I think about the past time, and very often this image of a gushing river comes to my mind, where it is just flowing from very top, and sometimes it's just, very calm, and it's nourishing things across, on the sides. Yeah, a lot of us experience emotions that we couldn't have felt before. So wherever we are in our journey of even feeling there, hold on to that as we move forward. If at any point later also you feel like sharing, feel free to use the chat box to be able to do so, or you could just write it for yourself. So as we move forward, would love to know from you all, and I would really invite us to be, engaging and sharing our thoughts, because this is not a didactic session, but more about a space where we all can talk about mental health. Akshat is saying, seems like in a never-ending tunnel with many different, yes, Akshat, feelings and experiences. And it stands out to me that you use the word different. Sometimes it's so hard to really name one emotion, and then there are so many multiple emotions that we are experiencing. And you use the word never ending. Yeah. So just hold on to wherever you are. Thank you for sharing, everyone who shared. Others, you may just write it for yourself. So if we were to kind of talk about what is your understanding of mental health, would anybody like to unmute and share? Would love to hear from you. Or you may write it in the chat box as well. You may use, like Kaveri said, emojis as well. Sometimes they come very handy to explain what you're feeling. Or you may want to unmute. Is our Janvi saying mental health is our emotional wellness. Janvi, would it be okay for you to kind of unmute and share a little bit more on it?
At least that's what I believe. It's that, if you're emotionally okay, like you're mentally okay. So like, I mean, it's on the same wavelength. At least that's what I understand when it comes to mental health.
Sure. And you mentioned emotionally okay. As we move forward, we'll talk more about it. Kaveri is saying a neglected aspect of our overall well-being, fundamental to a person's growth. Like you said, so important, Kaveri, for all of us to grow. And what does it take? What does it even mean to, talk about well-being? A lot of time in my experience, when we were reflecting upon these questions, a lot of responses were like, oh, being happy, or being joyful. But in reality, when we talk about mental health, I can see Seher saying understanding one's emotions and acknowledging them. Thank you so much for sharing that, Seher. Harshita is saying our thoughts, how we feel and how we behave. Yes, Harshita. And like Seher said, it's not only about feeling happy and joyful all the time, but acknowledging the range of emotions that we experience. Very often we use, this very popular that with all of us, the emojis. And what it tells us that it's not only about happy, sad, elated, but it could be confused, angry, or the range of emotions that we experience, sometimes confused, sometimes mixed. But just our ability, like Seher said, to articulate, to express, and just to identify this is what I'm feeling, and to be able to express it in a way, in a manner that is safe for us and people around us. So thank you for all your responses that you shared so far about our understanding of mental health. In a recent times, there has been talks and conversations about it. And we'll talk more about what are some of the factors that we kind of feel affect our mental health. So maybe
Sajida?
take a pause. Hanji?
We have somebody who's raised their hand.
Sure.
The name reads CC055. So if you could come off mute and share.
I think that's Seher, right? Seher?
No, ma'am. This is
Okay.
Anjali.
Please go ahead, Anjali.
So I have a few views. What I feel about mental health is it just not only relates to your emotional well-being, it also refers to your cognitive or behavioral well-being. I mean, mental health should not be a destination, rather a process, is what I feel.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Anjali, for bringing it up, like the various ways that it affects, and we cannot take it in isolation. But mental health is different, physical health is different, cognitive health is different. It's all, as our body is all interconnected. But like you said, like how one aspect of it is directly connected to the other. And in all, when we talk about well-being holistically, about physical, mental health, emotional health, it all kind of connects. Yeah, but thank you so much, Anjali, for bringing it up. Yeah. Thank you. And
Thank
just
you,
to
ma'am.
acknowledge, yeah, and please call me Sajida, that's okay. So like I said, it may look very different for different people. Very often than not, we associate, okay, if somebody just looks very happy, maybe they do not have mental health concerns. Wherein in reality, culturally, we are so conditioned and programmed to show that we are happy and elated all the time. So we don't really acknowledge what is really happening deep within. And for different people, it may look very different. So just to acknowledge that fact that it's not like a standardized, like a checklist that if this is there, then there are mental health concerns. It may come at any time, at any age. We've seen very, very young children experiencing mental health concerns, very old people, our youth currently, with everything that is happening around us, they experience, and different people experience it differently, and just to acknowledge that. So if you are experiencing something which seems very different, just for you also to know that it's okay to feel what you're feeling right now. Just to be able to do that, to have that conversation with yourself at that point of time. Would love to hear anyone, any thoughts that are different about mental health before we move forward. I'll just pause for a couple of minutes to hear. We can move on to the next slide, but while we hear, if someone has to share anything about how they have seen it different. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so firstly, I feel mental health, there's a different equation and a different level for each individual. It's very, very subjective. What could be someone's level of coping with something and someone's level of dealing with issues, it could be very different for someone else. And maybe something is too much for someone, but something is like they're not at all affected by it. So with that, it's a very abstract thing. And I feel mental health, there cannot, I mean, people do try to create levels, and that this is the level of anxiety, or this is certain levels where someone is facing some issue or no. But I personally feel that there can be no metrics for it. It's an individual who creates his or her own metrics. And that's what mental health to me is. It's a state of being in which you're trying to cope with different things and all the elements around you. That's there. So that's my take.
Yeah, thank you for, who's that speaking? Sorry, I didn't read your name.
Shivansh.
Shivansh, thank you so much to bring that up, Shivansh. I think you brought such an important aspect that each one of us come from our lived experience of what we've experienced life, and that kind of shapes into how we respond. And like you mentioned the word coping, right? Like responding to our mental health needs, and it could mean very different for different people. So thank you so much for bringing it up. I read in the chat, it's something that needs attention since childhood. Dimple is saying we lack mental health awareness. As a martial arts coach, I have seen children that clearly need help and go unnoticed. And thank you, Dimple, for kind of sharing that. I think this need is as much, like I know in our culture, there has been a lot of emphasis on the academic part of, growth and development. But this is so much more important right from nursery class. I engage, through the fellowship that we have launched at Umeed for Inclusion with very young children from nursery. And at Umeed, we have children coming at very young age where they are experiencing anxiety, where they're experiencing different kind of mental health concerns, which kind of are not even spoken about in our culture. And you rightly said that since childhood, this needs attention. So thank you for bringing that up, Dimple. And I think since childhood until we kind of, leave this world, there is always going to be this conversation about the need to talk about well-being and mental health. So thank you for bringing that up. Yeah. So while we move on and talk about, what are some of the factors that we feel determine or affect our mental health, and would love to think about your own experiences as well and something that you have seen around you. So anybody can just put it on the chat or unmute. What do you think affects our mental health? Any personal experience surrounding? I hear peers, home, physical health, hormones, social network. What else? Yeah, all these are, ways that it affects our mental health. Personal expectations, Harshita is saying. Social structures, Kaveri is saying. Personal coping support network, the support that is available for us. Yeah. Think about your own, journey, and when are the times where, any of the factors has affected your mental health. So one of the things, key ideas, I would say, academics, stressful situations. Yes, Janvi is saying academics. Also the discourses around what success looks like. A lot of time culturally, you've been kind of conditioned to believe that if this happens, that means success. Career concerns, yes, definitely. Constant pressure of society. Is that Anjali? CCO55.
Yes, that is.
Yeah. Would you like to speak a little bit about when we talk about pressure of society?
Ma'am, I think it includes many things. It's maybe like it about career or about your gender or like anything. It can be because there are so many levels and so many expectations that society hold, and so I think it comes from all the backgrounds. And, yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much for bringing that up. And like everyone, each one of you said different aspects of it. So you've lost someone very dear, guilt of not accomplishing enough. And Tisha, I would love to kind of, for you to think a little bit more on that, is to not accomplishing enough. Just to think about what are these single stories regarding success, and what are these discourses that we've been bought into, which kind of invites guilt in our life. Something that I would like each one of us to reflect a little bit about. Future expectations. Where are these stories coming about success that kind of, puts, invites that anxiety in our life or that kind of guilt in our life. And a stressful environment like COVID, like natural disasters, right? Nobody knew this was coming. Nobody knew. The first wave went and we said, oh, we'll be okay. The second came, we said, okay, now it'll be done. And now we are in the third wave, something that is beyond our control, not only in India, globally. Yeah. So like each one of you mentioned, I think I would love to stress a little bit about, everything, acknowledging everything that you say, the constant pressure to do well. Thank you, Dimple, for bringing that up, not by the society, but after a point, you put that on yourself. And Dimple would encourage, each one of us to think about, where is this pressure coming from? What is the story that we are telling ourselves? So a lot of time, one of the key ideas in narrative is, the problem is not the problem, but the problem is apart from the person. Like the person is not the problem is the problem. So how are these factors which are in a way systemic oppressions in the society that is affecting our mental health? So moving on, I think you all have covered, most of the, reasons that and the factors that affects our mental health. I would also like to kind of draw your attention to government policies or past trauma or, social systems. Like, can we imagine, I was thinking about this, like being so privileged in a country like India, that we do have policies around inclusion, whether it is inclusion of gender, although we were late, but right now a lot of things are in place, and how that affects a well-being of so many of us. And then I was also thinking about although these things are there at policy level, what would it take to kind of challenge the dominant discourses regarding exclusion, which directly affects well-being of so many of us, the stigma, the stories that we've bought into since so many years. So, just taking a moment to reflect upon in our personal lives, or people who we love, what are some of the factors that has been affecting their mental health? Also, like someone also mentioned, I think Kaveri mentioned the support system. A lot of us are, really privileged to have a very strong support system, and a lot of us may not have that kind of support system. So there are different factors which kind of influence the way we respond to our mental health. In the interest of time, I would move forward, although this is something that needs more reflection and to think about, how are we even recognizing these factors that are affecting mental health, and not really locating problem in people's bodies, but actually in the systems of, the structures and systems and single stories that affect our mental health. So now we next move on to a very popular word that I think all of us in Mumbai are familiar with, and which is the word jugaad. So can someone tell me, I mean, you must have used it, or what is your understanding of the word jugaad? You could unmute or write in the chat. Negotiate, making the best of situations. Okay. Thank you for sharing. Innovation. I read Santosh is saying innovation, trying. Sorry, I missed one. Trying to get the easy way. Yes, easy way, easy, fast hacks. Being witty. Do one thing at least that makes me happy, feels right. Okay. All right. So everything that you said, I think not having expectations. Oh, wow. I can see meaning making of the word, which is like so different. And all of us have such different perspectives. Not having expectations work best in the least resources, Tisha is saying. All right. Lovely. Okay, so everything that you said, I think as Mumbaikars, as Indians globally, we are called jugadus. We kind of figure out very innovative ways, like each one of you said. And one of the key ideas in narrative is people are experts of themselves. So you are an expert of yourself, and you are always responding. A flexible way to solve problem. Yes, a flexible way, exactly, which is like very innovative and very the essence of the word jugadu. So I would invite each one of us to think about the different jugaad that we do to support our mental health. हम सब कुछ ना कुछ करते हैं. We all do something to support our mental health. Maybe take a moment to reflect upon what is it that you are doing currently. Like I said, you are an expert of yourself. You are already doing things to respond to your mental health. Kaveri, can I request you to kind of share the Padlet? Hanji, thank you so much. So Kaveri has shared a Padlet. If you've reflected upon, what is it that you are doing to support your mental health, would love for you to kind of write it on the Padlet, and I will share the intent behind doing this. So I think spaces like this, when we do collective documentation of, it's called collective documentation, wherein each one of us not only recognize our own expertise and things we are doing to respond, but collectively, how can we inspire each other to be, able to start doing things that, we may have forgotten to do, or maybe, okay, this I was doing before, or now I would like to start doing. So I'll pause a little bit here. Yes, watching Netflix. So true. Netflix has been a savior throughout COVID for a lot of us. Making new friends, not thinking too much. Thank you so much for sharing. If each one of us can take a moment and share, we'll take a couple of minutes to do that. Kaveri, we are at 6:18. Will it be okay to extend for another like 5 minutes?
Sure, yes.
Yeah.
Those of us who are using the Padlet for the first time, you can see a plus sign right at the right corner. You can click on that and then the box pops up. You can also feel free to post an image, a drawing, anything that seems relevant to the topic, and you think that's your way of jugaad to self-care. Yeah.
I can see responses coming in. Yeah. I remember one of the participants in the last session that I was engaging with mentioned a very creative way of saying that, hey, I had this, kind of concern of overthinking, and then I decided to have a worry window. So, what I would do is in a day's time, because news used to be very overwhelming. So what I used to do is like assign a time in a day where I would actually assign to kind of think about and worry about. And then after that, I would close the worry window. So I really found that idea very cool. Kaveri, if you could add worry window to the Padlet, that would be great.
Absolutely, on it.
Thank you so much for all your responses. I can see so many new creative ideas, so many ideas that I had thought before. I see Nana Patekar watching movies. That's been my go-to thing as well. Journaling. Yeah. Wow. Sure. And this is a live document. What can we share this with the participants, Kaveri?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah. All right. So what we would do is this is your space and our space, the collective document that we have created together to inspire each other. It's okay to reach out. There's culturally a lot of taboo towards reaching out for support, mental health support. Someone said that for me, just reaching out and talking to a professional or a friend was very, very important. So whatever you feel, like I said, you are an expert of yourself, whatever you feel, best works for your well-being. And we have so many new cool ideas here, so which we'll be sharing with you briefly. You may keep adding. So as we are moving towards the last segment of our talk today, our space today, would just invite all of you all to take a moment and think about one thing, just one thing that you would start doing differently from today to support your mental health. If you could write it on the chat box. This is our Jugaad document, which was created in our last session. Someone who was very creative, who offered to kind of put it together, in this kind of a document. And that person and that group says that we keep it close to our desk every day to as a reminder to take care of our well-being and mental health, even on those days when it's hard to do it. So if you would like any one of us to make it creative, feel free to do so. But before we close, we'll just take 1 minute, take more walks or listen to something soothing music. Thank you so much. I can see responses coming in the chat box. Use the worry window hack from now on. Sure, Seher. Even if we could write it for ourselves, what is that one thing that we're going to do to take care of our well-being and our mental health from today onwards? Maybe we were doing something, like I remember I had stopped cycling, and post-COVID I just started cycling. It really helped me relieve my stress so much. So it could be anything that maybe you were doing before and you're doing now, or maybe from the Padlet you've got some idea. Meditation, thank you so much. Not compare ourselves with others on social media. Thank you so much, Ronit, for voicing that. Close your eyes for some time. Thank you. Disha, journaling and practicing gratitude. Yes, just acknowledging all that is going right for ourselves. Stop overthinking. Yeah. Getting up early and not using phone right after getting up. Thank you, Anjali. Thank you. Thank you, each one of you. Eating better, eating healthy. Thank you. Sauni. Shifa. Thank you, Shifa. Introspecting, reflecting, Akshat. Thank you so much. So, wow, working out, exercise. Yeah, it could be so relaxing and calming for a lot of us. Switching off your phone 1 hour before going to bed. I remember one person sharing that sometimes crying relieves them, of a lot of stress. I mean, there's so many discourses around crying, it's weak, but for that person that worked. So just crying or just sleeping or eating or not doing anything, being in the bed is also responding, because that's what your body needs at that point of time. Talking things out. Yes, sharing, Shrestha. Thank you. Feeling great about ourselves and always putting ourselves first, self-love and self-support. Thank you so much, Ruheen, for sharing that. Yeah, we talk about self-love. Even when we go in a flight, we've been asked to put our mask first and then support others. So how are we taking care of ourselves? Talking to your family or just sitting with them. Thank you. I'm loving all these responses. And actually, some of it is a reminder for me too to start doing those things. So thank you so much for being such a lovely, engaging participants. I think collective spaces like this are, a sign of community care and how we can be support to each other as well. So thank you so much for engaging and participating. Over to you, Kaveri.
Thank you so much, Sajida, for just making it like extremely smooth for us to talk about mental health. I think when you spoke about the multiple hacks, it was just yesterday when I was talking to a friend, and what she said was at her organization, every Monday, they would have these team meetings where they had to discuss, what was on their radar for the week, what were different tasks that they had to finish. And it was obviously a very stressful time because everybody would think about, what do I have to do? What do I have to do? So what they did was, because we're living in the Zoom era, all of them, they made a background which said, stop overthinking and smile. And every time somebody would enter the meeting, that was their virtual background, and that would just help them stay calm, even if it was for 10 seconds, and you're doing a whole lot of things. Another really cool idea that I saw the other day my friend doing was, she wears a t-shirt which says stop overthinking, and every time you're on Zoom, you tend to look at yourself more than the other panelists. And so she would read that and say, stop overthinking, to herself. Yeah, thank you so much, folks, for just sharing these really cool ideas. And thank you, Sajida, for bringing that perspective of a mental health practitioner, what it might look like to deal with mental health amidst a really, really difficult time for all of us. Yeah. With that, I am going to invite Archana. So just a caveat, and sorry, Archana, for a very weird introduction, because I'm going to say that Archana is not a mental health practitioner, but the reason why we are having her on the panel today is because she's a mental health advocate. And I think apart from being mental health practitioners, all of us might not be mental health practitioners, certified ones especially, but we can definitely be mental health advocates. And that's one of the reasons why I felt, when we talk about ourselves and people around us, and we talk about an entire support system, having a mental health advocate close to in your social circle is extremely important, because they are the ones who sometimes become the connectors to larger bits that you might not be able to figure out yourself, right? So Archana, I mean, with that, tell us about your initiative on mental health, how it started. Why was this an important topic of discussion for you?
Thank you so much, Kaveri, for putting that in context, because I'm definitely not a professional, but I'm super passionate about this, and I'm so excited to be here today. Thank you, Sajida. Your session was brilliant. I feel so connected and present, and it was so nice to see, how all of us deal with ourselves, and some of the things on that screen, as it's things we all do. And I feel so like it's nice to know that you're not alone in doing a lot of these things, and it's a community, right? It's something that we all do together, and it really helps to feel like you're not alone most times. From that, I will move on to talking about mental health itself and why I'm passionate about it, right? So I believe, my talk, I have 10 minutes, Kaveri.
Yeah,
Awesome.
It's okay. You can take your time. Yeah.
Awesome. So I'm going to try to talk through a couple of things here, right? So I really do believe that India currently is suffering a silent mental health crisis, right? So we are one of the most depressed countries in the world. UNICEF recently came up with a report. It's called The State of the World's Children, and it kind of maps how young people across different countries are doing with respect to their mental health, right? And it's a very interesting report, right? And I like data and statistics because it helps to put a problem in context. And I also very often get shocked by these numbers, and it helps you kind of think about how much of a problem this is, right? And that report says that 14% of Indian teenagers, that's 1 in every 7, reports feeling depressed or having no interest in doing things. Put that together with something like how many psychiatric specialists or mental health professionals we have in this country, right? We have a dismal number. It's a very, very tiny number for our population, right? There is no way that we have enough number of certified professional mental health providers in this country for the people who are there. So access is definitely a big problem in India. And even those who get this access generally are those who tend to be privileged. Me, for example, I had a very privileged childhood, right? I had the means to be able to get help and, talk to people. I had the vocabulary that a lot of children in low income communities, a lot of adults in low income communities may not have. Right. But I also face the second big issue with respect to mental health in India, which is the taboo of it. Right. This is brilliant that we're all talking about it, because we're already breaking the cultural norm of never speaking about how you feel. That is something that's very deep in our tradition, right? Of swallowing your feelings and putting your head down and getting on with life, right? The jugaad of watching a movie or, dealing with it yourself and not sharing about it, not talking about it in a public space is very common in India, right? The report also says, in the same line, that only 40% of Indian teenagers feel like, that they are able to reach out to others to share that they're experiencing mental health issues. This is very sad, right? So the average for 21 other countries was 83%, which means 83% of teenagers in these other countries believe that they should share about their issues. That number is only 40% in India. right? And that is a clear indicator of the kind of cultural taboo that we have, right? So when I was younger and I had my own share of heartbreaks and losses and not getting that seat or, all of those typical things, I felt pretty lost. These are fairly commonplace struggles, but I wasn't able to cope with them. I also experienced panic attacks when I was an adolescent and I was completely lost, right? And I don't think I coped very well with any of it because I was never taught how to cope, right? My coping mechanisms were not in place. When I was much older, I was able to seek out a therapist and, I discovered a channel of support. And that was in spite of my family, right? Because my family were like, they were surprised, they were shocked, they were against it. And I was surprised because my father and sister were both doctors. You would expect that, they would understand it. I came from a privileged background, but they didn't. It's also, I think, a matter of context, right? What you do, what is a solution where. And I think Sajida's slide of how different people deal with their mental health concerns really brought that point out beautifully. But I learned this the hard way, right? As a Teach for India fellow, I had a student in my class whom I will not name. And when he was a new child, right? And when he came into my class, he looked a lot like a bullied child. He was very shy. He was very quiet. If you sat next to him to try to teach him something, he usually flinched. Didn't talk much at all. So I was very convinced that this was a bullied, quiet child. And what happened was very soon, as the months went on, there were a lot more fights that this child had with his peers, right? And things got difficult. The thing, his fights got more violent. His actions for his age got a lot more obscene. And I didn't know how to deal with this, right? I was a young Teach for India fellow, and I didn't have a lot of, ways to deal with that. I didn't know what to do. So I went and met his mother, who had a completely big story, right? She was saying how it was impossible for her to manage this child, and there were constant complaints against him, and that she was in a great difficulty in dealing with him, right? So I suggested we go to a psychiatrist. And she was very excited about the idea. She thought that, anything that would help her understand and help and kind of get out of this difficulty would be a great thing. So I remember it was me, the child, and his mother sitting in the psychiatrist's office. And it was an overwhelming experience, right? Because I thought this was a bullied child. I thought that the mother was very angry and she was also probably beating him like the other teachers, which is extremely common in low income settings, right? Right, this kind of activity, right? So I thought that was something like that. But the psychiatrist, very quickly in talking to him, kind of explored that he has a great command over language. He spoke English and Hindi. He had a great idea of what he was doing, the actions, the kind of fights that he was getting into. He knew it was his fault. And the psychiatrist told us that he is not at all a bullied child, and in fact, the opposite. The mother, for the first time, felt understood, that someone had understood what she was going through. Right? The psychiatrist gave us some solutions. She said, don't treat him any different from the other kids. You have to hold him accountable to his actions. And this is something I would have never thought to do. I didn't know that that could be the issue, right? And he was diagnosed with a borderline personality disorder. And even though we came back to the community, I had like solutions now. The mother had solutions. We, enrolled in marathons, and it was it was very helpful. Like, I wouldn't say everything changed, but that situation helped me recognize that there was a role for professional, intervention there, right? I was listening. That was all I could do. And even though I was doing all of that, sometimes it is not enough. Right? I say that it's a matter of context, because although we came back and it was helpful, and it was not the other children that teased the child, right? It was the teachers. It was the adults in the community who teased the child for, getting support from a doctor. And I often wonder if I did the right thing in taking the child to, a psychiatrist, right? So it was quite difficult. Half of the children in that classroom where I taught, I also taught high grade classrooms, like high grade high school classrooms, right? And half of them were from single parent households. Many of them had been through traumatic events growing up. So me and my co-fellow felt that, it is not possible as fellows to be able to provide them with the kind of support they needed. And I personally had a great experience with cognitive behavioral therapy. There are various kinds of therapy as well, right? So you should do your reading up about this. And it's very often, I think, a matter of fit, a matter of trial and error that, do you find the right therapist? Do you find the right time to talk? Do you have that private setting in your own home to kind of find that space to speak to somebody? And it's also, you need a lot of courage as well. But one big consideration is money, because it costs anywhere between 2,000, 3,000 rupees per, for a 1 hour session. That is expensive, right? And very often you may not feel like you deserve that investment in yourself, right? Because you have to say, I am investing this time and effort in working on my own mental health, right? And that is something that not everybody may feel. So, I knew that it is difficult, but we wanted to somehow have our children, right, have this support. And when we started Commune, my co-fellow and I started an initiative where we planned to map mental health providers to schools, just like how a lot of schools across different countries have school counselors in place where the child can walk into a room, have a conversation. And even though it's not about, even though it may not be about really traumatic events or something, it may also just be planning your goals for the year, planning your career, thinking about yourself, having that time out to speak to somebody about yourself, right? So we wanted that in schools, in the low-income schools. And something that we heard from a lot of people, even in this NGO development sector space, where you expect that people are a lot more open-minded, a lot of people say kids are resilient. That children will get through these things. It's a new age thing to worry about mental health, and we didn't do it this way, right? These are arguments, I think, that further inequity, and they underestimate what children and younger people can go through, right? And like Sajida said, we, in our work in Commune, we have seen that third standard kids, fourth standard kids, they are eloquent about what they are feeling. They are able to have, that kind of way of expressing themselves. And it is very important. And I definitely believe that children who are taught the right coping mechanisms will be adults who can soothe themselves, right? And you cannot underestimate the things that children in low-income settings go through. In just the school that I taught, it was just the 60 children, right? And it was the 2 years we faced the death of a student, we faced the suicide of a teacher. There were numerous other bigger losses, right? Even through the pandemic, how many people have lost their homes? How many people have, had members of their family fall sick? The general uncertainty of, students in this current time, of not knowing, how college is going to happen the next day, how school is going the next day, or, in a larger sense, will there be jobs? Right? Will this entrance exam take place? There are huge amount of uncertainties. And even without the pandemic, right, the social media age has a great impact on our self-image, right? And it's not easy to cope with these things when you've never been asked to think about it, right? So this is all, like, it's not easy. And I believe that everyone who takes this time out and invests in themselves, whether it's watching a movie, whether it is, working out, whether it's thinking about your own self-image, whether it's professional therapy, right? These are all ways of investing in yourself. And I am someone who is a great believer of both cognitive behavioral therapy as well as talk therapy. And I feel most people can gain something out of it, right? So when we started Pause for Perspective, we just wanted, when we started Commune with Pause for Perspective, we wanted to do something because we knew that the problem was imminent and we had the resources to help these kids and students and help them have someone to talk to, right? So Pause for Perspective is a local NGO in Hyderabad. And we worked with them to essentially map school counselors to these schools, certified professional mental health providers to these schools, right? It's been difficult, and we don't. We, out of whatever money we raise, are kind of paying for these people, for the mental health providers' salaries, right? So this is not a viable financial model of any sort. We don't know how we're going to scale up, or how we're going to do this, but we've started somewhere, and we're doing what we can. I will share resources about our work, and feel free to reach out to me if you want to volunteer your time or your efforts in any way, and I'd be more than happy, right? And me, for myself, I still have my panic attacks, and it's very bad premenstrually for me. It's a lot of hormonal impact, mainly in my life, but I try journaling, yoga, meditation, coloring. I try therapy. I'm not regular at any of those. And I'm not as regular as I would like to be, but I'm also very lucky to have like a community of support in my life. So you got to try, what you do, and you got to get on with things. But also there are a lot of others who can't afford to help themselves, right? They don't even have the vocabulary yet. Young children, people from low income settings, women in a lot of settings, right? Across classes, because gender is such an important part of mental health, right? And so yeah, there's a lot of work to be done. The policies in this country, and the public health setup of mental health is really sad and horrible right now. So it is up to you guys, right? It's up to, and I'm so happy to be here and see that you guys are engaged in an issue like this. But get moving, do things, you guys. If you have the time, if you have the ability to do something about things, do it, right? So I'm so glad to be here. Thank you so much.
Absolutely, Archana. Thank you so much for that. I think a lot of it was about, the social construct. I think I heard a lot, and a phrase that we've heard in a lot of our households is, whenever you are angry, you're taught gussa pi jao. You're told to drink your anger. You're not told to express it in a safe manner. And when you say that a lot of children, irrespective of their backgrounds, are eloquent in voicing out how they are feeling, which is very true, because I have a lot of nieces and nephews, and something that a lot of the elder generation says is, this generation of kids only knows how to say no, because every child, when parents try to stuff food in their mouth, they're like, no, we don't want to eat, and all of that. I was reading up a whole lot because of my interest in psychology in personal capacity. I saw that we are all innately capable of recognizing what our emotions are, and knowing how to respond to it in some capacity. Beyond that, we need a whole lot of coping techniques. We need a good support system to actually make way through the uncertainties of life. I have been a mental health advocate after I witnessed, I went through a personal crisis of losing my mother and supporting her all by myself. So I think it has been a difficult journey. When we talk more about it, and understanding the nuances of it become very, very important. And thank you for also touching upon school as an institution where these mechanisms can be taught, much like how we are taught algebra and the digestive system and everything else. Can we also be taught coping mechanisms? And when you say when commune with pause for perspective, does this important role of actually bringing mental health professionals closer to children, especially in the low income communities. And we talk about being privileged. I think I remember my school was a school of about 3,500 to 4,000 children, and we had 2 mental health professionals. And when we talk about learning disabilities and all of that, that's a different ball game altogether. Right now, we're just talking about having access to basic mental health. So I think, thank you so much for just voicing out your concern about this. And I know all of us folks we cannot be mental health professionals, and that's not what all of us are here for, right? We do have a Sajida and a whole lot of others who are certified mental health professionals, and whenever we feel the need, we must seek support from mental health professionals. But at the same time, what Archana also put forth, if you have mental health advocates close to you, if you decide to become one, it becomes important. You become instrumental in helping somebody in their mental health journey. I think I credit a lot of my balanced state of mind to my mental health advocates, because they advised me and they told me that, Kaveri, you need to go for therapy. And it started making sense to me then. And I'm saying this after being educated. I studied psychology as well and was still not up for it because of the taboo that's associated with mental health, right? So here is a short video that I want to share. If you think any of your friend is struggling, anybody who you know is probably struggling, and you don't know how to sort of make that move with them, here's something that might help you go forward with it. I'm just going to share my screen right now. Okay,
Listen, you're my friend.
I noticed you haven't really been yourself recently.
Yeah, I feel like something's up.
How are you?
Are you okay?
Is there anything you want to talk about?
I just want to know how you're feeling.
And listen, even if you don't know what to say, I'm here to talk.
No matter what you're going through,
I just want you to know I'm here.
I've got your back. When you want to talk, I'm here.
Yeah, so like I said, awkward moments are not that bad. Maybe you just need to seize that opportunity to talk to a friend, ask basic questions. Hey, you don't seem okay. Can I talk to you? I'm here to listen, and just sharing that out. With that, I'm going to hand it back to you, Shivansh. Thank you so much for people who are joining us live, for people who are on the call. There are about 100 people for just engaging in this conversation. And I hope there is some takeaway that you have from this space. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you to the entire team at Talaash and at Jai Hind for organizing this. My team at Teach for India, fellows like Sajida and Archana for doing a whole lot of the groundwork, ensuring that our classrooms are safe spaces to talk about mental health, and finding that platform to become mental health advocates. So thank you so much for joining us, folks. Over to you, Shivansh, for any closing.
Yeah, thank you so much. I just want to say that how Miss Sajda and how Miss Archana, how you all took us through not just the theoretical aspect of mental health, but firstly how we can apply it in our lives, how we can actually be advocates for it, how people are actually, what are some of the initiatives we can ourselves do, because uh, I like I've said before, we always talk about mental health. We bring up that we should obviously seek help. We should go and we should work for our mental sanity, meditate and all. But we something that I feel is what we can take away from this session, which you all have clearly emphasized so well, is that that's not the end of the journey. You have to actually take it forward, because right now, if we as the youth, if we can have a stand on it and we cause that difference, we are well equipped to handle problems like this and know what's to be done. If so many of us, at least I'm super inspired to be at least in some way affiliated as a mental health advocate, super inspired by the work, because of course everyone cannot get that degree and know how the human mind works, right? That's not everyone's cup of tea. But for those who can do that, it's a great avenue to do that, because people need help. Everyone needs help in some point in their life, it's at some stage. And if not that, obviously we can do something from our bit to be a mental health advocate and create a difference in society. And that's I feel that's the least each one can do, and that's something, it's a major takeaway, that this is not the end of the thing. Like, once this session ends, that's not when we stop talking about mental health, we start acting about mental health. So I really feel that's something really a great takeaway from the session. And uh, I personally felt that all the 100 participants, over 100 that we have right now, being a Saturday evening, you all chose to come and give your bit. Like, this is the first step, right? Attending a session like this, where we have two really, really great speakers talking about this, and you trying to know what you can do as an individual yourself. I think that is a step forward in the right direction, as small as it is. Really, really happy to see so many of you joining in on a Saturday evening. And yes, apart from that, would just like to close by thanking Teach for India, and thank you so much, Kaveri, for helping organize this session. And it was eye opening and it was inspiring at the same time. So, yep, hopefully, if you all have any thoughts, please put it up in the chat box. Any takeaway that you've had from this session, anything, be it like maybe a reaction or a single word, something that you really liked and enjoyed about the session, or what you would like to do in the mental health space. Absolutely anything, because I personally feel like thank you so much to both the speakers and the panelists here. It was, the session couldn't have been better. I think it was practical. It was something we can do. And yes, the change has to come from us, because that's when, once we set that base, we can take it forward and the country can have and implement those changes, which right now we don't see in the laws, in the setup that's there. So it's yes, it is on us and all of us here to spread the word. Anybody, any thoughts in the chat box, or anyone wants to unmute and speak something?
Like we mentioned in the very beginning, this is the first part of the two-part series. We're also engaging and deep diving into this conversation of mental health and exploring the paradigm of art, along with Saturday art class and Mansi Mehan tomorrow. So would request all of you, for those of you who have not yet registered, to go forward and register and join us for that session as well. We're going to deep dive today. We just sort of scratched the surface. Tomorrow we're going to try and deep dive with Mansi and her team at Saturday Art Class. And yes, I am extremely happy that she's also an alumni of Jai Hind College. So do root for your alumni as well. Yes, would love to see if there are any thoughts on the chat box as we can close the session. Thank you so much, Janvi. I'm glad you found it amazing. Thank you for that, Harshita. So folks, the Padlet will be active. I will stop the sharing bit on it, but you can definitely access and have a look at it. It could be your own resource bank of what to do when you're feeling slightly anxious.
I'm on the live session as well. We have people thanking you. And Rishabh Gupta says, yes, definitely. Thank you. It was really eye-opening and it opened my mind to something and start something new. So the session actually inspired a lot of people. And we thank you all so much for doing this session with us.